A great day to one and all. Welcome to the September 2023 Licensure Examination for Teachers or LET Review for Mathematics Majors. I am Mr. Kim J.C. Ensho, and I am your discussant for the final coaching, particularly on items 161 until 200. So, as of this moment, I hope that you are ready physically and mentally. The PDF copy of the file or the hard copy is ready as well as your answer sheets. And I will be discussing another set of 40 items with you tonight. And for you to pass, you have to get at least half of it. So please be reminded, um, as much as possible, let us avoid annotations on the screen so that we will not be able to disturb others. Thank you. And for the directions, shade the box that corresponds to your answer. If the correct answer is not found among the choices, shade E. Okay, let's do this. Let's have item number 161. In a class about quadratic functions, the teacher showed the following graph to students. Some learners mentioned the following. Who among them is incorrect? A, the function has a minimum point. B, the leading coefficient is positive. C, the range is y is greater than or equal to -5. Or D, the graph is symmetrical about the vertex. Please comment your answer po. Ay, okay. So, hindi po siguro nakasagot yung iba. Busy masyado. Okay. Sige lang po. Noted po, Mr. Sir Francis. Okay. Please write down your answer po. Ano pong sagot ninyo sa item na to? A, B, C, D? O baka E kaya yung tamang sagot? Okay. Anyone? Sabi ni Sir ng isang classmate ninyo, letter C daw, the range is y is greater than or equal to -5. May sumagot ng letter C din. Okay? So far, two people have given their answers. Tama nga kaya? Okay, so far there are three people na. May sumagot naman ng D. So it seems na C or D lang po yung sagot natin. No? Pero tingnan natin, tama kaya kayo? Okay, let us take a look at the case. Let's discuss letter A. The function has a minimum point. This is actually correct. Because if kung inyo pong makikita, no, this parabola opens upward. And if a parabola opens upward, it is understood that the vertex is the lowest or the minimum point. So A here is actually correct. How about B? B, the leading coefficient is positive. This is also correct. Tandaan po natin, if a quadratic equation has a positive leading coefficient, then its graph is a parabola that opens upward. But if the leading coefficient is negative, then its graph will be facing downward. So dahil positive ito, so dapat lang na naka-open siya upward. So B is actually correct also. How about letter C? The range of the function is y is greater than or equal to -5. Take note, when we say range, it is the set of all allowable y values or mga y. Notice nyo po, yung pinakamaliit po na y ay -5. At lahat po ng y na mas mataas sa kanya ay may pares ng x. No? So halimbawa, this is x, may pares na y. So lahat ng y greater than or equal to -5 ay actually part ng range. So letter C is also a correct statement. How about letter D? The graph is symmetrical about the vertex, and this is also correct. Tandaan po natin ha, that the axis of symmetry passes through the vertex. And this axis of symmetry divides the parabola into two equal parts. So dapat tandaan po natin that the parabola is always symmetrical with respect to its vertex. So, lahat po sila tama. So, letter E po yung tamang sagot. So, sa lahat ng sumagot ng E, ikaw na. Tama po kayo. But it's okay, no? Some of us might have a rough start, pero gaya po ng sinasabi ko palagi, yung mahalaga po ay natututo po tayo. 162. Which of the following is true about quadrilaterals A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H? A, both congruent and similar. B, not congruent but similar. Okay. Bakit E? Okay, so may nagtatanong po, no, bakit E yung 161? Di ba yung hinahanap po ay incorrect? A, B, C, and D are all correct options. Lahat po sila tama. So wala pong mali sa kanila. Symmetric po siya about the vertex. Yung vertex po, dito po yung vertex niya, oh. Ito po yung vertex niya. Symmetrical po yan, yung graph na to. Tandaan po natin ha, the graph of a quadratic function is always symmetrical about the vertex. Symmetrical po yan. Meaning, yung isang side na nasa left ng vertex, halimbawa ito po yung vertex, yung side na to, at saka yung side na to, symmetrical po. Na kapag finold siya, according to this, they will perfectly coincide po with one another. That's why they are perfectly symmetrical. Okay po? I hope that that satisfies. Okay, salamat po. Next. Okay. So, which is which? Ah, take note po, marami po tayong uri ng symmetry. We have what we call rotational symmetry. We also have what we call yung flips, no? Pero symmetrical po siya, no? About the vertex. No? Yes, symmetrical po siya dito. Meron po tayong iba't ibang uri ng symmetry, no? So, generally, a quadratic function is symmetrical, no? Especially with respect to your vertex here. Kapag dito yung dumadaan yung iyong axis of symmetry natin. Okay. So how about sa 162? Which of the following is true about quadrilaterals A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H? Are they congruent and similar? Not congruent but similar? Not similar but congruent? Or neither similar nor congruent? Okay, I see a lot of A's. And if you answered letter A po, I'm so happy to tell you that you are actually correct. Because in this case po, no, these two are actually congruent. These are both squares. I hope you would agree that these are both squares and they are congruent. They have the same shape and size. At dahil same shape and size, tandaan po natin na kapag if two figures are congruent, then it's also understood na similar po sila. That's why congruency also means similarity. So, letter A po tayo. Hindi pwede na congruent sila, pero hindi sila similar. No. All congruent polygons are similar polygons. Letter A. Okay, so far, so good. 163. Teachers should be fully aware that they measure what they intend to measure. It exemplifies that assessment should be what? Okay, reliable, multidimensional, valid, or practical? Okay, letter C, valid. Valid nga ba? I think many of you are sure about this, pero let's see. Okay, we have also one of you, no, who answered reliable. So saan sa dalawa? Valid nga ba o reliable? Take note that two are actually different. And the correct answer here is actually valid. Why? When we say valid, a certain test is valid if it measures what it intends to measure. No? So there are many types of validity. Meron po tayong tinatawag na content validity. Halimbawa po, kapag sinabi ng teacher nyo na yung exam niya ay mula chapter 1 at chapter 1 yung exam niya, dapat kung ang exam niya na-cover yung topics ng chapter 1, valid po yun. Content valid po yun. Pero kapag sinama niya yung chapter 2 at ibang chapters na hindi niya diniscuss, wala pong content validity. Meron din po tayong tinatawag na um, construct validity, no? And many more. Yung reliable naman po, yung reliability is all about consistency ng scores. Yes, I do agree with you, no, Sir Christopher. And this problem kasi does not speak about consistency. It speaks more about validity. Letter C. Thank you po. 164. Socialization is integral even in mathematics classrooms. The following can boost socialization in the classroom except A. Brainstorming, B. Group work, C. Think, pair, share, or D. Individual work. Okay, I see that there are many confidently beautiful people answering letter D. Confident, no? And if you answered letter D, you are actually correct. Usually, kapag nagbe-brainstorm po tayo, halimbawa po, no, merong isang problem na focus sa class at lahat ng members ng students natin, no, yung mga students natin, they are free to share what they know about the problem. In group work, of course, certain people, no, a lot of people, say 5 members in a group would cooperate to answer the task or to do the task. In think, pair, share, so usually you are partnered with someone else. So you say to them what you think, you work with them together. And in individual work, you usually work on your own without the help of others. And sa individual work, minsan, you have to do things individually. Because when tomorrow comes, you will be on your own, feeling frightened of the things that you don't know. Probably, when tomorrow comes, tomorrow comes, tomorrow comes. That's why we do believe, that in education, that in real life, no man is an island. So most likely, it's also good. It's also good, from time to time that we work with others. It's also good that sometimes we have to work by ourselves. Because just like in my case, I have to work sometimes all by myself. Okay, kidding aside. So letter D. Gusto ko yan, Sir Francisco. Ingay lang. Push mo yan. 165. Knowing that children are capable of understanding the problem through pictures, the teacher should help them understand blank next. Is it A, enactive, B, iconic, C, symbolic, or D, didactic? Okay. Okay, I see a lot of B's. Tandaan po natin, meron po tayong tatlo yan eh. We have the enactive, iconic, and symbolic. I hope na na-understand po natin. Take note po. I hope that you understood the problem. Sabi kasi dito, na-understand na ng bata yung problem through pictures. Kung pictures po, ano po yan? Is it enactive, iconic, or symbolic? Yung pictures is iconic, di po ba? Iconic po is pictures. Pero, ang tanong po dito, the teacher should help them understand blank next. So, after niyang ma-understand yung picture, ano ang sunod niya na dapat intindihin? At yun ay, very good. Letter C, symbolic. Because after iconic or pictures, there should come a time that child or the children will be able to understand the lesson by means of symbols like text or words. So symbolic po yung tamang sagot. That's why may word po kasi na next eh. So, yan. So careful po tayo. Okay? So letter C. 166. A student drew a triangle on the surface of a sphere using a certain software and determined the sum of all the measures of the interior angles. Which of the following measures in degrees can he arrive to? Do you think 180 greater than 180, equal to 180, less than 180, or a no? Yeah, yeah, yung word na next po. So careful po tayo. Okay, equal to 180 daw. Be careful po ha. I'm sorry, pero hindi po siya equal to 180. You can have equal to 180 if you draw the triangle, a perfect triangle, for example, in a flat surface. Pero take note po ha, bola po, parang sphere, bola, yung siya magdodrawing ng triangle. So, kapag sa bola ka nag-drawing, i-expect mo na sum of all interior angles. Okay, may nagsasabing greater than 180, may nagsasabing less equal. So be careful. I hope you are familiar with your elliptic geometry. No? If you draw a triangle in a flat surface, all the three interior angles would add up to 180 degrees. However po, if you draw a triangle on the surface of a sphere, halimbawa dito po, no? This will be 90 here. It could be 90 here. It could also be 90 here. In fact, the angle, some of the angles could be greater than 90, no? That's why sometimes things become weird if you do it on the surface, on a non-flat surface. And believe it or not, kapag nag-draw ka ng isang triangle sa isang bola o sphere, the sum of the interior angles is greater than 180 degrees. Letter A. Okay? So careful po. Try nyo po. Kuha po kayo ng bola at saka i-try nyo pong mag-draw. Yeah, I'm sure it will be greater than 180. No? Modern geometry po natin ito. 167. In this type of geometry, it is expected that triangles will have an interior angle sum of less than 180 degrees. What is this? Is it elliptic, Euclidean, hyperbolic, or qualitative? Okay, consult please. I hope you were able to have your modern geometry, no? Okay, elliptic daw. Sabi ng iba. May nagsasabi namang hyperbolic. Hati po tayo. May A, may C. I hope na hindi po tayo nag-answer ng Euclidean, ha? Kasi sa Euclidean, sa Euclidean plane, no, sa flat surface, 180 degrees po yan exactly. So saan siya less than 180? And the correct answer is, in the Euclidean plane, zero curvature yan, kasi purely flat siya, 180 degrees yung sum. Kapag nag-draw ka sa surface of a sphere, which is could be a possible model of elliptic geometry, because of the positive curvature, its sum will be greater than 180 degrees. However, if you have a negative curvature, such as in the surface of a saddle like this, no? Yung saddle, for example, yung parang nilalagay ata yan sa horse, no? Sa kabayo na pwedeng sakayan. And if you draw a triangle there, the sum of the interior angles will be less than 180 degrees. And that could happen in hyperbolic geometry, letter C. I hope it's clear with us po, no? So, kung hyperbolic, less than 180 degrees. Kung elliptic, greater than 180 degrees yung sum po natin. Salamat po. I hope na nakuha po natin. 168. What is a possible product of two irrational numbers? Is it A? The statements of your three students are the following. Student A, irrational. Sabi ni student B, could be rational. C, could be zero. Who among these students is or are telling the truth? Is it A and B and C, or A and C? Anyone? Sino yung nagsasabi ng totoo sa kanila? Yung hindi ka lolokohin, yung hindi ka paaasahin. Ano daw? Okay, letter A daw, student A, okay. 168A according to 4 people. So okay, letter A din, sabi ni sir. Okay, sabi ni ma'am. All right. Tama nga ba si A? A is actually, student A is correct. For example, student square root of 2 and square root of 3 are both irrational. Their product is square root of 6, which is still irrational. Ang tanong, pwede bang maging rational yung product nilang dalawa? And the answer is, tan 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 tan, pwede. Halimbawa, square root of 2 times square root of 2. Di ba? Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is square root of 4, which simplifies to 2. And we know that 2 is a rational number. So student B is also telling the truth. So pwede po. Student C could be 0 is false. Remember, for you to have a 0 na product, dapat at least one of the numbers involved is 0. Pero hindi po pwede yan kasi 0 is rational eh. Sabi sa problem, irrational lang po yung imumultiply natin. So A and B are telling the truth. So the correct answer is letter B, A and B. Very good. So letter B po ang tamang sagot ha. Pwedeng irrational, pwede ring irrational. I hope na nakuha po natin. Ganun. Sige lang po, push lang, laban lang po. 169. You ask your learners, what is true if you draw two straight lines that are perpendicular with one another? The following answered the following. All of them are true except A. Okay. Student A said the alternate interior angles are congruent. B. How about B, C and D? Saan po dyan yung tama? Or saan dito ang tama? Lahat sila tama maliban sa ano? All right, letter A daw. Okay. Letter A? Okay. If you answered letter A, you are actually correct. Wala pong alternate interior angles dito. Wala po. Usually, no, you could have alternate interior angles if you have at least 3 lines involved. No? 3 distinct lines involved. So wala po yan dito. Letter B is also correct. Vertical, lahat po sila actually are right angles. So this is congruent to this. This is also congruent to this. So B is correct, no? Vertical angles are congruent. C is also correct because adjacent angles are supplementary because this and this add up to 180. Any two consecutive adjacent angles would add up to 180 degrees po. D is also correct because since the two angles, no, they are adjacent, they add up to 180 degrees. So that satisfies the definition of a linear pair. So tama po lahat maliban kay student A. So the correct answer is A. Okay. 170. Sir Mike is doing assessment for learning. Which kind of assessment should he not give? Is it A, placement, B, diagnostic, C, formative, or D, summative? Yes po, no? I'm not sure if this is sir or ma'am Higanto. If may parallel lines na nakat by a transversal line, pwede. Pero dito kasi dalawa lang sila eh. Wala namang if there are at least 3 lines, no? If there are at least 2 distinct lines cut by a distinct transversal, then we could have alternate interior angles po. Okay, D daw. Let's have this one. When we say assessment for learning, it could be done before or during instruction. That's why, yung placement test kasi before yan before instruction. Yung diagnostics test could be done before or during instruction. Yung formative test naman po ay during instruction po yan. Yung summative test naman ay after instruction. That's why A, B, and C are actually assessment for learning upang matuto po yung bata, upang matuto po yung ating mga learners. And yung summative test naman po ay assessment of learning na po yan. Assessment of learning. So letter D ang tamang sagot. Wow! Sa lahat ng sumagot ng D, wow, you got it right. Sana all. 171. If the goal of the teacher in mathematics classrooms is to develop in the learner personal responsibility in learning by generating his or her personal goals based on standard set, then he is after assessment blank learning. Is it as, of, for, or by? Okay, keep your answers going. I could see letter A's. And if you answered letter A, let us define po muna assessment as learning. When we say assessment as learning, it means learning to assess oneself, no? This develops in the learner the personal responsibility in learning by generating his or her personal goals based on standard sets. It involves the learning undertaking informal, and formal assessment. Yet it also involves the learner actively reflecting on his or her progress, or no. So you are familiar also with what we call metacognition or thinking about thinking. Letter A. Tama po yung self-assessment. Yung assessment as learning is your self-assessment din po. All right. 172. Teacher Jen reflected in the report card, or in the public schools right now, no, we call it SF9. If the desired learner behavior is observed or not. This is an example of what kind of data? Welcome po. Is it quantitative, qualitative, discrete, or continuous? Okay, I could see a lot of qualitative answers. If you answered qualitative po, you are actually correct. Kapag sinabi naman yung quantitative kasi, it's an indication of an amount or account, no? Pero dito po kasi, observe lang observe or not observe lang yung nilalagay mo. So dito, you are just qualifying, no? Kung naipakita o wala, you are not presenting, giving any number here most likely that represents an amount or account. So qualitative po yung best answer dito. Yung discrete naman po, it's quantitative data but it's something that is derived through counting. Yung continuous naman po ay mini-measure po. Letter B po yung tamang sagot dito. I hope it's clear. 173. Which of the following is an example of a formative test? Did you go for pre-test, short quiz, graded recitation, or quarter test? May sumagot ata ng E, may sumagot ng B, okay? May sumagot din ata ng E. Okay. Formative test, di ba? Usually, formative tests are given during instruction, di po ba? So, take note ha, based on current standards right now, pre-test is more of diagnostic. No? Short quiz is more of formative. Because normally po ngayon, yung formative assessment is recorded but not necessarily graded. Graded recitation could be summative by nature, especially graded siya. So the purpose is to give grades, so summative na po yun. It becomes assessment of learning na. And yung quarter test is of course summative by nature. Letter B. Yes, letter B. That's why sa standards po ngayon, no, If you would give a short quiz after your lesson, formative na po yung pag-treat sa kanya. Okay. I hope na tama na okay po sa atin. 174. Which of the following is the most essential to increase objectivity in scoring essay tests? A, proper disposition. Kasi ako like in my case, no, nagbibigay din po ako ng essay minsan sa math. B, total score. C, rubrics. D, partiality. All right? And many of you answered letter C, and I would agree with you. No? So rubrics would list down with the specific criteria in such a way that it does not really eliminate bias, does not really eliminate bias totally, but somehow your scoring becomes more objective. In my case po, aside from the rubrics, no, minsan, hindi ko po tinitignan yung name ng bata. Kasi minsan, kapag alam mo yung name ng bata, minsan kasi parang affected ka din eh. No? Parang naapektuhan din yung decision mo minsan. But of course, we don't want that to happen. No? We have to be objective as much as possible. Okay. 175.
Recording in progress.
Which of the following should be considered in making the directions for matching type tests? Is it A, how to make the match? 2, basis for matching? Is it 1, 2, 1 and 2? Neither 1 nor 2. Yes, I agree, no? Takpan ng name para hindi bias. Okay. Okay, letter D, both 1 and 2? Pwede both? Let's see kung pwede both. If how to make a match, this is actually essential. Halimbawa, paano? Will you write the letter of the answer on the space provided? Will you draw a line connecting your answer to the second column? That's why dapat alam natin kung paano nga ba. So 1 is necessary. The basis for matching the response with the premise is also necessary. Halimbawa, ano? Is it synonyms? I-match mo yung pangyayari? Is it cause and effect? And so on. Dapat malinaw din folks sa nagkumukuha ng test, ano ba yung basehan ng pag-match? Kasi malay mo, minatch ka naman talaga sa tao hindi para sa'yo. Ano daw? Okay. With that, both 1 and 2, letter D. Parang ako lang, no? Minatch sa tao hindi para sa akin. Ano daw? Okay, 176. Which of the following is a good practice in writing multiple choice tests? A, the options have to be heterogeneous. B, the options must be negatively worded always. C, the succeeding item should be dependent of the previous item. Or D, the previous item should be independent of the previous item. Excuse me. Grabe siya. Okay, anyone? What's your answer here? Letter D daw. Good practice. D. May letter A naman. Okay. Maraming sumagot ng A. Meron ding sumagot ng D. Okay. So, tingnan po natin kung may tama sa inyo. Is letter A a good practice? The options have to be heterogeneous. And I'm sorry to tell you, mali po yung A. Bakit hindi? Kapag sinabi po nating heterogeneous ang options, iba-iba po yung options, no? May tao, may hayop, may pangyayari. Halimbawa, what is 3 plus 5? A, 8. B, pig. C, Magellan. Or D, because of Cold War. It doesn't make sense. If your options are heterogeneous, sometimes the student can answer it dahil hinahanap addition, yung ibang sagot, hindi naman number. So most likely, malalaman na yung sagot just by elimination. So the options have to be heterogeneous is actually not allowed. It should be discouraged. The options must be negatively worded always, hindi po sana. Research shows that the term negative words like not could be not be seen sometimes. No? Letter C, the item should be dependent of the previous item as much as possible. If possible po, avoid din ito. Bakit? Halimbawa, kung nagkamali siya sa number 1, at kung gagamitin muli yung given sa number 1 for the number 2 item, nako, kung mali siya sa number 1, sa number 2, baka mali din siya. The best is letter D. The succeeding item should be independent of the previous item. So that even though magkamali siya sa previous item, might still, no, dahil wala siyang pakialam or wala siyang connect sa ibang items, maaaring makatama siya sa ibang items. Parang ikaw natamaan sa kanya. Okay, wala. So letter D po. 177. Is multiple choice test format appropriate to measures one ability to answer creating type of questions? A, no. B, yes. C, maybe. Or D, sometimes. Okay? I see many people said no. When we say creating po, when we say creating, synthesis. Example, gumawa ka ng poem. That's synthesis or creating. Make an essay. That's creating. Do you think multiple choice test can answer creating type? Like essay? Essay is creating. So the best answer is, I'm sorry for some, it's no. That's why this is one of the limitations of multiple choice types of test, no? Because usually creating or synthesis type of questions like could be best addressed by means of essay, for example, but not multiple choice test. Okay, thank you po. Letter A, no. 178. What do you call is done to determine if a multiple choice item is easy or difficult? Ano po yung ginagawa natin? Is it item analysis, difficulty analysis, discrimination analysis, or plausibility analysis? May sumagot ng A. Take note po specific po ata yung hinahanap dito kasi sabi niya if it's easy or difficult. Item analysis po ba? And I'm sorry, but what we are looking for is specific. Sabi niya, sabi dito kasi, no, if easy or difficult. Okay? If you answered an item analysis, take note, marami po tayong ways to analyze the item. We have difficulty index. We can also analyze the plausibility of distractors. We could also have discrimination index. Pero kasi, specific po yung hinihingi kung gaano ka-easy or hard yung question. So that is difficulty analysis po yan. Yung ginagawa natin. So letter B po. You are computing for the difficulty index, no? As suggested by, is this Sir or Ma'am Higanto? Okay, thank you po. Yung discrimination analysis naman po, it's the ability to put into distinction between those who scored high on the total test and those who scored low. Like how can the test item separate the good performing and the not so good performing? Yung plausibility analysis naman po, it's usually used to analyze the distractors of multiple choice items, no? Kung dapat ba siyang i-retain, dapat ba siyang o palitan. Letter B. Okay. Thank you po. 179. The upper group has 15 learners among the class. It was found out that only 8 people got item number 1 correctly. What is the difficulty index in percent of item number 1? Is it 53.33, 40.0, 35.88, or 26.67? All right. Letter A, yung sagot ng mga nag-comment so far, 53.33%. Sure? Let's see if you got the item right. When we speak about difficulty index, no, to compute your index of difficulty, the formula is number of people who got the item right divided by the total number of people in in the upper and lower group times 100%. Take note po as well that in doing this computation, um, yung numerator mo ay lahat na nakakuha ng item na yan from both upper and lower group. No? I-add mo sila. Tapos, kung ilan po yung number of people in the upper group, yun din po yung total number of people in the lower group. I-add nyo po sila both and multiply by 100%. To make this simple as well, or in other words as well, no? If there are 15 people, di ba sabi dito, the upper group has 15 learners, it is also understood that the lower group has 15 learners. Which means that all in all, there are 8 people who got the item right out of the 30 people from both upper and lower group times 100%. So baka yung ginamit ng iba, 15 lang. Hindi po. Dapat i-add mo po kung ilan lahat from both upper and lower group. So with that, using your calculators, it's approximately 26.67%. Letter D. I hope na nakuha po natin. Yes. Yes po, Ma'am Jeline. Kung ilang tao po sa upper group, dapat ganun din po yung dami ng tao sa lower group. Hindi po pwede na magkaiba. Dapat parehas po talaga. That's why, careful po ha. That's why minsan, careful po. Kasi yan po yung formula. Kung 15 lang po yung ginamit nyo, so mali po yan. That's why, yung ano lang, no? Pinsan parang ano lang, pampasway. Okay. Next, there are 9 and 7 people in the upper and lower group, respectively, who got multiple choice item number 8 right. This implies that the item has blank discrimination. Is it A, positive, B, negative, C, 0, or D, undefined? Okay, letter A daw, positive discrimination. Discriminate nga ba niyan positively? If you answered positive discrimination, very good. Positive discrimination, there's positive discrimination if more from the upper group got the item right than from the lower group. There is a negative discrimination kung marami yung sa lower group ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot kaysa sa upper group. 0 naman po yung discrimination index natin if equal yung number of people na nakakuha ng tamang sagot from both upper and lower group. And letter A po yung ang sagot po natin. Good job, everyone. Okay, 181. I hope clear. What do you call a symmetrical bell-shaped curve representing the probability density function of a normal distribution? Is it A, skewed to the left, B, skewed to the right, C, normal distribution, or D, asymmetrical curve? Okay. If you answered letter C or normal distribution, you should be happy dahil tama po kayo. It is a symmetrical bell-shaped curve representing the probability density function or PDF of a normal distribution. The area of a vertical section of a curve represents the probability that the random variable lies between the values which delimit the section. So, it's yung skew to the left at skew to the right naman po ay non-symmetrical. No? So, letter C. Which of the following statements is true? A statistic and a parameter are related but are not the same thing. A statistics and parameter are not related and are not the same thing. C. A statistic and a parameter are related but are the same thing and are the same thing. Or D. A statistic and a parameter are not related and are the same thing. Letter A daw. Ang sabi ng karamihan sa atin. Are you telling us that a statistic and a parameter are related pero hindi sila magkaparehas? And if you answered letter A, I'm very happy for you dahil tama po kayo. When we say statistic, it is a measure that's computed from the sample, whereas from the parameter naman po, it's a measure or a value that you could compute from the population. Hindi po sila magkaparehas. Pero related po sila. Paano sila naging related? Because sometimes your statistic could be used to estimate the population parameter. Okay? So letter A po, yung ating tamang sagot dito. Hindi po sila magkaparehas ha? Hindi po sila magkaparehas, pero magkaugnay po sila. Letter A. Good job, everyone. 183. Dr. Enka is interested to find out if a certain type of pill is effective for weight loss. What research design will he use to achieve such purpose? Is it A, causal comparative, B, correlational, C, descriptive or survey, or D, experimental? For 183, may sumagot ng A. Meron ding sumagot ng D. Karamihan sa inyo sumagot ng D. Okay, let's see if you got it right. Causal comparative research is a family of research designs used to examine potential causes for observed differences found among existing groups. So, based on this definition, parang there are two types of this. You examine the cause or you could examine the effect. And I think for you to try out if a certain pill is effective or not, it's not causal comparative. Correlational naman, if it's a non-experimental research method that examines the relationship between two or more variables. In this case, it's not your intention to examine yung relationship, pero kung effective nga ba o hindi. So hindi rin po siya. Yung descriptive naman aims to accurately and systematically describe a population, situation, or phenomenon. It can answer what, where, and when, and how questions, but not the why questions. Halimbawa po, yung may questionnaire ka, tapos pinasasagutan mo sa mga persons dyan. So that's descriptive or survey. And for experimental research, this one utilizes the scientific approach. It establishes procedures that allow the researcher to test a hypothesis and to systematically and scientifically study causal relationships among variables. And experimental here is actually the best. So you make an experiment, you control other extraneous variables as much as possible, you control your study as much as possible in such a way na yung effect talaga or is really based sa pill kung effective o hindi. So letter D po, experimental. Okay. Parang ikaw lang, in-experimentuhan niya. Char lang, hindi. 184. Which of the following could be the number of modes of a standard normal curve? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Ang ingay ni Sir Francisco, gusto ko yan. Biro lang po. Okay, ilan po? 1 lang ba? Ginamit ka lang. Ay naku, gusto ko yan. Letter A. Isa lang daw. And if you answered A, dan 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 dan, tama po kayo. because it is one of the properties of the normal distribution na siya ay unimodal. The normal distribution curve is unimodal, meaning isa lang po yung mode niya. Meaning, that's why you could see, no, isa lang po yung peak niya. In fact, the mean, the median, and the mode are located at the center of your distribution. So, isa lang po yung ating mode. Letter A is correct. Great. All right. Tandaan po, isa lang po ang mode natin sa isang standard normal curve. Hindi po siya pwedeng dalawa o sobra. Kasi kapag meron ka ng dalawa o tatlo o sobra pa, nako, life it becomes complicated minsan. Okay, 185. Consider a normal distribution with a mean of 7. What percent of the data set is higher than 7? Is it 25, 30, 45, or 50? Okay, letter A. Okay, sorry, we have D, A. Okay. Many of you answered D, pero meron ding sumagot ng A. Take note ha, ang mean or average ay 7. Tandaan po natin, mga moms and sirs, that the mean is equal to the median, it's also equal to the mode of your normal distribution. In a normal distribution, kung babalikan po natin yung previous slide, ito po siya yung mean, median, at saka mode ay nandito. 50% of the scores are, approximately 50% of the scores are less than the mean, and approximately 50% of the scores are higher than the mean. That's why, dahil mean mo 7, it's understood na ang less than 7 ay 50%, ang higher than 7 is also 50%. So letter D po talaga. I hope na nakuha po natin. 186. A teacher correlated students' mental health needs and expectations, and a positive, high, significant relationship was determined. It means that as mental health needs blank, then expectations has a tendency to blank. Is it A, increase, also increase, B, decrease, increase, increase, decrease, or change, change? Oh, take note ha, positive po yung relationship. Okay, may sumagot ng, marami po sumagot ng A, may mangilan-ngilan na sumagot po ng letter D. And I hope na clear po sa atin. Kapag sinabi po nating positive correlation, they go together in the same direction. Meaning, as one variable increases, so the other variable also increases. Or, kapag yung isang variable nagde-decrease, the other should also decrease. So same direction po ha. Kapag positive correlation, it's either increase or decrease. Yung negative correlation naman po, baliktad. If the first increases, the second variable decreases, or vice versa. If the first decreases, the second increases. And the no correlation means there's no relationship on them, so there's no line of best fit that could that suits your data. So the correct answer here is increase, also increase. As mental health needs increases or increase, then expectations has a tendency to also increase. All right. I hope na clear po ha, kasi sabi po kasi positive eh. Thank you. Dito sir, dito po, hindi siya perfectly positive. Kapag sinabi po kasi natin perfectly positive, dapat all of the points are contained on the line. All the points should lie on the line. Dito kasi hindi niya sinabing perfectly na positive or perfectly negative. Basta may trend siyang pinapakita na it's either increasing or decreasing yung trend. Welcome po. 187. I asked my friend to guess my age in years. He answered 30. This answer is an example of a or an blank estimate. Is it A, interval estimate, B, point estimate, C, nominal or ordinal estimate? Anyone? Okay, nominal daw yung estimate. May sumagot ng point. So B at saka C yung sagot ninyo. And take note po ha, mga moms and sirs, meron na po tayong dalawang uri ng estimate. That is, in statistical estimation, we have either what we call a point estimate or an interval estimate. Kapag sinabi po nating point estimate, nagbibigay ka lang ng isang value. Okay? At saka yung interval estimate naman po, you are specifying a certain interval, no, na pwedeng mag-lie yung ating population mean, for example. Halimbawa, kapag sinabi ko, oh, ilang kaya yung age ko? I think you're 30 years old. That's an example of a point estimate. Letter B. And tandaan po natin ha, in statistics, a point estimate should always be within the interval estimate. Okay? So kapag isang value lang po, point estimate po yan. Change answer agad. Sabi siya. Okay. How about ito? I asked my friend to guess my age in years. He answered, maybe within 30 and 35. This answer is an example of tamang gaya lang sa majority. Grabe siya. Okay, this one is Char. Okay, okay, yes. If you answered interval estimate, you are actually correct. Because siguro hindi mo na ma-predict talaga kung ano yung actual na yon, pero alam mo na it's within that range, no? So, interval estimate po yan. So, I hope that you got it. Based on looks lang, sir. Ay, grabe siya. Okay, based on looks, how old am I? Hindi ko dati malimutan yan. I think I asked my student last 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and I asked them, if you don't mind, how old am I? And they told me, sir, maybe you're 40 to 45. And many of them said that. I am 33 years old. Okay. So that's why, yun. So maraming, that's why hindi naman, parang medyo na-offend lang ako ng konti. Kidding aside. But really, no, I look like 40 plus na daw. So, Z, matanda na si sir nyo. Okay. Letter A. A researcher thinks that if expectant mothers use vitamin pills, the birth weight of the babies will increase. The average birth weight of the population is 6.2 pounds. Which of the following is a possible null hypothesis? Yes, Ma'am Elaine, tama po kayo. Yan po yung age ko ngayon. Matanda na po si sir ninyo. Okay. May sumagot ng letter C. Pero karamihan sa inyo, A ang sagot. Alright? Take note ha. In research, when we say null hypothesis, in null hypothesis, you are actually sticking to the status quo or to the present data. So there's no significant difference. So kung ano yung sinasuggest ng data or ng records, stick ka doon. Hindi ka magde-deviate doon. Sabi dito, the average birth weight of the population is 6.2 pounds. If you will formulate your null hypothesis, hindi ka aalis dito. So stick ka lang dito, no? Yung parang through good times and bad times, I will be on your side forevermore. So you will stick to what your data is saying, and the correct answer here is letter A. The average birth weight of babies is 6.2 pounds. This is our null hypothesis. Stick ka lang sa kanya because yan yung sinasabi ng records. Sir Jerome, grabe ka. Look, agad-agad. Okay, letter A po. Yung letter B naman could be an alternative hypothesis. Kasi sabi dito, will increase eh. Okay. Yung alternative hypothesis ko dito ay letter B. The average birth weight of the babies will increase is greater than 6.2 pounds. Ito po yung alternative hypothesis sa problem na to. Kasi sabi dito sa problem, no, the birth weight, a researcher thinks that if expectant mothers use vitamin pills, the birth weight of the babies will increase. So, tataas siya sa 6.2 pounds na average. So, B is the alternative hypothesis here. I hope I was able to answer your question, Mr. Villanueva. Thank you po. 190. Mrs. Camariosa would like to determine the variability of her learner scores in a quiz. She noted that there are no outliers and that the distribution is approximately normal. She wants to determine the most reliable measure of variability, which is the best thing to compute. According to Ma'am Mildred, Sir Legaspi, Sir Jason, Ma'am Nurse, Sir Christian, standard deviation daw. And yun din po yung sabi ng subsequent no, na nag-comment. If you answered standard deviation, you have to be happy because you are actually correct. Standard deviation is the most widely used measure of variability. It's most reliable, and it is best with symmetrical distributions with only one mode. And usually, you could use the standard deviation if there are no significant outliers and your data is approximately normal po. Standard deviation and variance are related. Standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So standard deviation is in units, samantalang yung variance is in units squared. We prefer the standard deviation over the variance kasi we prefer it to be in units, not in square units. Letter C. Okay? 191. To check for consistency, Teacher Kim administered two different but equivalent forms of an instrument to the same group of individuals during the same time period. Halimbawa, yung isang group, set A. Yung isang group, set B. What method of establishing consistency did she do? Is it A, test, retest, B, parallel form, C, split half, or D, KR20? Okay, please comment. Letter D daw, parallel forms. Yung sagot ng ating mga kaguro. Let's see if you got it correctly. When we say test-retest method, it involves administering the same test twice to the same group after a certain time interval has elapsed. No? Halimbawa, nagbigay ka ng test ngayon. Tapos, after 2 months, bigay mo ulit yung same test sa kanila at ito-note mo kung consistent nga ba yung scores o hindi. No? So, test-retest method po yun. Yung parallel forms naman, this is actually the correct answer. You are giving different tests, but they are equivalent forms of one another. Meaning to say, kahit set A sa kabila, set B sa kabila, halimbawa, yung question ni set A, number 1 question niya, ay parallel din sa number 1 question ni B. Yung magkaiba lang siguro halimbawa, iniba lang yung given, no, ng konti. Pero they should measure as much as possible. It is suggested that they measure the same competency po sana. Yung split half naman po, ito yung, there are many ways of doing this, no? So halimbawa, yung test, hahatiin mo siya sa dalawang bahagi. Okay? 2 parts. For example, 2 groups pa din. You will give the same test to the two groups. Pero sabihin mo sa kabila, okay, kayo sa group na yan, answer all the odd items. So sasagutan nila 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. Tapos sa kabilang side, kayo dyan sa kabila ha, sagutan ninyo yung lahat ng even numbered items. So sagutan nila si 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's split half. And your KR20 naman po, it's a measure of internal consistency for examinations with dichotomous choices. Meaning, 1 if success or right, 0 if wrong or failure. No? It produces a correlation measure between 0, where a high KR coefficient, for example, greater than 0.90, is an indicative of a homogeneous test. So, ang tamang sagot po ay letter B. All right. 192. The mean score of 9 platito is 39.79 with a standard deviation of 5.5, while that of 9 gold duck is 44.98 with an SD of 15.4. Which class performed better? Is it A, B, C, or D? What do you think? Anyone? Okay, letter A daw. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is your answer for 192? Did you go for A, B, C, or D? Grabe naman kayo makalapit sa akin, ha? Biro lang po. Letter A, okay. Take note, it is understood that ano ba yung dapat yung basihan natin? Yung mean o standard deviation? Dapat yung basihan natin ay mean, hindi po standard deviation ha. To indicate that if some it's better than the other here in this case, dapat po mean yung ating basihan. And take note po, dapat mean po yung basehan dito, hindi po standard deviation. Actually, believe it or not, the correct answer here is actually E. It should be what? It's 9 gold up because it has a higher mean po dapat. 9 gold up since it has a higher mean. But since that is not one of the choices, so letter E po talaga yung tamang sagot sa 192. Thank you po. I hope na nakuha po ninyo, hindi po SD. Yung SD po kasi, it's usually being used to compare kung saan yung mas consistent sa kanila. No? 193. The mean score of 9 platito is, I think it's the same. Which class is more consistent in terms of scores than the other? What's your answer for 193? Grabe si ano. Okay. Ano pong sagot sa 193? Okay. If you answered letter A, take note po ha, for consistency purposes, if you have the standard deviations of 2 or more groups, the group with the lowest standard deviation is the most consistent. And the group with the highest standard deviation is the least consistent, or the most heterogeneous. So letter A po yung tamang sagot because 9 platitos has the lower standard deviation. Good job to all who answered A. But if not, it's still okay. 194. A researcher found out that a person's height is positively and significantly related to his or her weight. Which of the following conclusions is or are acceptable? Is it one, two, three, or four? One, two, or three? Which of A, B, C, and G is correct? Okay, so what do you think? Letter A daw. Let's see. Is A correct? As height increases, weight also increases. This is actually correct. Okay? Because remember, dapat they should go together. Number two is also correct. This is also acceptable because if the first decreases, the second should also decrease. Three is wrong because dapat they should go together. Isa decrease, isa increase, hindi po pwede yan. So therefore, one and two is correct. We go for letter B. So careful po. Be careful. Kasi sabi dito, positively related. Positive means, positive relationship means they go in the same directions. Increase, increase, or decrease, decrease. Be very careful po tayo, ha? Careful po tayo. Okay? Okay. All right. 195. You use paired samples t-test between English and math scores. Based on the SPSS results, which of the following can be inferred? Is it A? Okay, check niyo po ha, which of A, B, C, or D is correct? Okay, what do you think? Okay, B daw. Take note ha. How do you know? Look at the last column, which is sig two-tailed. No? And then, normally, ay nako, sorry. Hindi ko po sinabi no, kung ano po yung ating alpha equals, no? Okay, so this could be a bonus po sana. Hindi ko po nailagay, no? Normally po sana, it should be alpha equals 0.05. Pero hindi ko po na-reflect dyan. So bonus na lang po ito. Take note. Supposedly, if I have stated na if alpha equals 0.05, then this should be letter B. Kasi ganito po yan eh. If the sig two-tailed or the p-value here is less than your alpha, significant po yan. Pero if the value that you get here is greater than your alpha, hindi po significant yung results. Pero hindi ko po nilagay kung ano yung alpha natin. So sige po, bonus na lang po sa atin yung item 195. Pero normally po, normally in research, particularly in social studies or social sciences, or in psychology, no, 0.05 po yung ginagamit natin. Even in many uh, educational institutions, 0.05 po yung usual na ginagamit. But anyway, bonus na lang po ito. Thank you. Next, consider the significance level alpha equals 0.05. Which of the following p-values? P-value po is the same as significance, as the sig two-tailed here. Which of the following p-values will make the researcher reject the null hypothesis to come up with a good decision? Is it A, 0.01, B, 0.07, C, 0.18, or D, 0.37? Okay, what is your answer? Okay. Di ba nasabi ko na bago lang, no? For you to reject the null hypothesis, the computed p-value should be less than your alpha level. So among all of the choices, saan dito yung mas mababa compared sa 0.05? That is, tama, 0.01. So if P is less than alpha, then reject HO. If P is greater than alpha, then you do not reject HO. So dahil i-reject mo po yung HO or null hypothesis, dapat mas mababa po yung p-value natin kaysa 0.05 here. So letter A po yung tamang sagot. Okay, thank you po Sir Jason and the rest. No? Tama. 197. Which of the following could be used to actively determine the sum of integers? Is it A, geoboard, B, color counter, C, Cartesian plane, or D, calculator? Okay, geoboard. Okay. Sum po ng integers, ha? Sum ng integers. I hope na hindi po kayo sumagot ng geoboard for the sum of integers because we are usually using colored counters. Huh? So, halimbawa, yung positive integers will be represented by green counters. Yung negative integers could be represented by another color of counters. So, for 197, letter B po, yung tamang sagot. Okay, thank you po, Sir Jason, Ma'am Ellie, and Ma'am Rale. Okay. 198. You are teaching the learners how to create graphs or charts in Microsoft Excel. Which of these should the class make if they want to determine the relative number of males to females? Is it pie, line, pictograph, or histogram? Which is the best option? Relative number, meaning makikita mo visually kung sino yung mas marami sa kanila, yung lalaki o babae. Relative also, no? Sa isang graph lang sila magkasama. And the correct answer is histogram. Are you sure? It's not histogram po. The correct answer is pie graph or circle graph. Kasi makikita po natin dyan, no, visually kung saan yung mas malaki or sino yung mas marami. Yung lalaki o babae. Yung line graph naman po, ginagamit naman po yan to determine the trend. No? Halimbawa, gusto mong malaman kumusta yung sales mo for the months from January to December. So line graph po yun. Pie graph po talaga. Or circle graph. Letter A. 199. To factor a quadratic trinomial, teacher Jim placed the following steps on the board. What kind of factoring technique did he use? Is it grouping, subdividing, completing the square, or diagramming? Letter A, grouping daw, sabi ni Teacher Legaspi. Letter A din, yung sagot ng karamihan sa atin, ng mga nag-comment, I mean, if you answered letter A, you are actually correct. Bakit po? So kung inyo pong mapapansin, no? So you broke down the 7x into 4x plus 3x and copy the rest. X squared din po ito, sorry, nawala po yung 2. Tapos, you grouped this one is the first group. Yung x squared plus 3x is first group. Yung second group naman ay 4x plus 12. And you employed factoring by grouping na po dito. You factored out the x squared po ito, ha? You factored out the GCF. You factored out the GCF here. And you could see that x plus 3 is a common factor of these two terms. So you factor it out. So it's x plus 3 times x plus 4 po. So it's factoring by grouping. Okay? And we have one more. If the goal of the teacher is to compare and contrast two methods in solving mathematics to note their similarities and differences. Which of the following is best to use? Cartesian plane, fishbone diagram, Venn diagram, or Johari's window? Okay, so if you answered Venn diagram, you are actually correct. Yung Cartesian plane, no, I think it's you are familiar with this. So it's made by the two number lines no, that intersect at right angles. So we have your x-axis and y-axis. Yung fishbone diagram naman is usually used for the sequencing of events from start to until the end. Yung Venn diagram is for comparing and contrasting. If they overlap, meaning there are similarities. If they don't overlap, meaning they don't have any similarities. And Johari's window, I hope you are familiar with this in psychology, or so it's letter C as well. And thank you so much. And that concludes our review for tonight. With that, thank you very much and a great day to one and all.